Good afternoon, beautiful people of planet Earth. The time is 3:47 p.m. on the 2nd of November 2024. Welcome to Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. Had a wonderful night of dancing last night, in spite of quite a few control dramas and weirdness with as usual, drunk people. But anyway, you get that when you go out dancing in clubs and pubs in Australia. It can get a bit feral at times. But no harm, no foul. I handled it. And I'm tired. Only had about 2 hours sleep this morning. So I've been lying in bed listening to music and contemplating my future trajectory here on planet Earth or here in Brisbane, Australia. Very tempted when I get that bit of settlement money from the Ethicon case to just get on a plane, one-way ticket somewhere and never come back. But how would I support myself? So I'm trapped in kind of Centrelink hell. And I'm laughing because I've been trapped in that for decades. People are embarrassing to admit. And but it's a beautiful day. My resident carpet snake that doesn't want to leave is still living in the side garden very close to Charlie's bedroom. And when the lawn mowing men arrived and they cracked up the lawnmower, actually way down the other end of the garden, but the noise was loud. Snakey moved like grease lightning to get under the house to safety. So it's a very intelligent carpet python, knows how to survive. I was well impressed, and it's now sleeping under the dragon fruit in its favourite spot, coiled up under there. So it's a very happy snake. And I'll be a very happy mamatee when it eventually moves out or goes back to the forest. But I have a feeling it's going to hang around, which is a problem for Charlie. We're not getting to enjoy the garden as much, are we, Charlie? She was terrified. Rightfully so. So it's interfering with our Charlie mojo. And anyway, I thought I would carry on with reading The Healing Blanket. We're not far from completing part one of the book anyway, and so yes, I think I'd like to read it. Keep reading it until it's completed because I'm enjoying the story very much. This time they've given us a there it is, eagle motif, or I don't know what you call that, the beginning of the chapter. So we're up to, yes my darling, we're up to chapter 5, The Moment. I think of you and warmth spreads from heart to veins like the flow of rivers, Medusique. By the next morning, the puddles began to dry up. The grass and trees had absorbed the water, reaching out towards the sun, but oil and water on the driveway remained, swirling with colour. A woman turned to the ignition. Nothing. Pete, when you got a minute, I need some help over here, she yelled out the window to her husband, standing a few feet away by his truck. Oh, Charlie. She had listened to the anger from the car. There were 6 of them, 6 men standing around, making plans, each fueling the other's anger. Yeah, I'm coming. He threw a cigarette down on the gravel, stepped on it, twisting it out. As soon as he reached the stalled car, he felt under the front end and lifted the hood. Then, knowing just where to look, walked over to the driver's side and reached inside the hood. Do you have to do this? She asked her husband, her head sticking out of the window. She didn't want trouble. Nothing's going to happen, the man answered back, still fiddling around under the hood. Just going to teach him a lesson, that's all. I don't like it, you know that. Okay, try it. The woman turned the key once again. This time the engine turned and rattled its usual beginning. He reached in his shirt pocket, tapped the cigarettes against his palm, then pulled the one sticking out. Lighting, inhaling and breathing once again, he leaned on the door's frame towards his wife. I'll make sure nothing happens. Now, give me a kiss. She kissed the man she loved, then, putting the car in reverse, backed out of her driveway, distancing herself, thinking only of the gas and groceries they needed. Lukunsu drove down the hot highway as Miskwa Mikinakwe's slight body relaxed into the jeep's movement, yielding to the highway's ups and downs. She braided sweetgrass and hummed. Every so often the elder would stop, smile, then return to her braiding and humming. Adrienne had fallen asleep. In the back seat, Charlie? Yes, that's the sort of thing Mama does on road trips too. Should take a road trip. I'm thinking Byron, maybe Mayala, go and see the fireflies, if they're still there. It's the time now, 4 p.m. If I left now, I'd be there just in time. But I'm reading a story, so priorities, babies. Priorities. Here, Mama. Morningstar handed Adrienne a bunch of wildflowers. Some drooped already from being separated from their roots. Did you put Asima down? She asked her daughter. She lifted Morningstar and held her against her hip, little arms holding onto the mother's shoulders. Adrienne reached for her dark hair and brushed it from her eyes. Did you thank the Creator? The little one's brown eyes grew big, remembering. Then, reaching into her little bag that hung around her neck, chubby fingers pinched out the tobacco and let it fall on the earth. It's very expensive to do that here in Australia, that kind of tobacco. You've got longer jail sentences for having organic homegrown tobacco than you do for marijuana. How do I know this? My ex-boyfriend told me that years ago. It's kind of nuts when you think about it. It's how the tobacco companies control everything, including, tobacco, wild-grown tobacco. It's horseshit. It's what it is, but anyway. Give me a kissy. What did they used to call it? Chop chop. Bigger fines for chop chop than for weed. It's a weird world we live in sometimes. It really is. Oh, Miigwech, Morningstar. You were honouring Mother Earth this way. Adrienne put the flowers up to her daughter's nose as she smelled them, then did the same for herself. The daughter wrapped her 2 little brown arms around her mother's neck, snuggled her warm face into the crook of her shoulder, then kissed the cheek she knew so well. Niju, now I've got to figure this out, wait a minute. Ni juwenomen, ni juwenomen, ni juwenomen, ni juwenomen, ni juwenomen. Ni mama, and means I love you, Mama. I love you too, Morningstar. The jangling of the turtle awoke Adrienne as the jeep Excuse me. As the jeep stopped at the stop sign, a smile remained in her heart, on her lips, and she thanked the Creator for the dream. She realised that she would now be able to remember the good, the love she held for her daughter, and timeless, boundless, eternal. I love you, morning star, she whispered and settled in to find the dream as the jeep continued down the road. Makuntz looked in the rearview mirror and watched as Adrian rested peacefully. And for the first time in a long while, he looked back at his own honest eyes. By mid-afternoon, they had reached Genu River. Adrian had been awake for an hour, talking to Miskwa Mikinakwe, first about the past, then about the future. I've already begun the article, she told the elder. The newspaper will print it. I have been assured. What do you plan for this? Miskwa Mikinakwe asked. I have to talk to the men on the tracks, find out what they know, what they feel. I have my camera. Makuntzi listened to the two women talk. He thought of his mother then, how strong she had been, her teachings about honouring and respecting women. Do not forget to talk to the women, the elder said. Your words must be balanced. Women are the keepers of the water. Our voices need to be heard, huh? Miigwech, I have learned so much from you. With your permission, I will add your teachings to this article. Talking leaves can be powerful if they come from the heart. Your heart is in the right place, daughter. Listen to your heart, and you will honour me with your words. We're only a mile from the bridge, Makuntz said, recognising the curves in the road, the bog and the cedar. Only a mile from Junudin, Adrian thought now, looking out the window, silent once more. She had dreamed of Morning Star, then of Junudin. She had dreamed of reaching the woods, of going in, of finding him, of the fire, of the stone, of voices coming at her. Now, as they turned down the road, she could not wait any longer. She needed to find Junudin, to speak to him once more. The searing black top reached up to the hot August sun. They reached the tracks, the bridge, and the men. The jeep slowed like a centipede crawling, moment by moment, to the men and fire. Adrian looked through the hot waving air to find strong wind, her hair wind-blown, her white sundress clinging. Her heart quickened at the thought of him, her breathing shallowed. She could not speak, she could not think. She could only look now, look for the man she loved. Do you see him? Makuntz asked. But he did not need an answer. Adrian sank back, looking out the window, her pulse racing, her mind reeling, her body aching. Junudin stood there, his bare back to her, his long black hair teasing her view of him. But he did not need to turn for her to see his face. She saw him in her mind, in her heart. She felt him now in her body, in her heart. She touched him, met him through the distance, in her heart, in her heart. Suddenly he turned, looking through the window of the jeep with his brother and auntie. She was all he could see. and in that moment, with hot air reaching between them, they met, silent, apart, together. The August day had filled quickly with heat as Wabanung Ikwe walked barefoot down to the shore's edge. Probably should go to the sea too. Do me the power of good. Need a good cleansing. She was drawn back to the lake, thinking yet of Adrienne, of the healing, of the learning. She stood overlooking the stillness, remembering the day she had come to collect Adrienne and her prayers, remembering the hurt, the healing, the friendship. Then, like a dragonfly drawn to the water's edge, Wabanungikwe walked into the tamarack, dark water, lifting her skirt that hovered over the still water, cooling her feet to cool her body. What do you want, little birdie? Your mummy's little baby? As she took another step, her foot touched a stone, rounded and smooth, and like a child, she reached down to discover what stories the stone would tell. Once her hand touched it, her spirit knew, and she smiled. Wabanungikwe swished it back and forth until the water had varnished it with wetness, anxious to see Mushumus. Holding the great Mushumus means grandfather. Holding the grey stone up to the afternoon light, her breath paused, realising what she saw. Etched into the water stone was another mineral deposit, painted by Creator, a story to bring to the others, a sign of hope. Aho, Wabanungikwe shouted. Humbled and honoured, she backed out of the water, put a sema down, and walked back up to her house, praying, Charlie. What would you pray for? She says, I'm praying for that mean old carpet snake that wants to eat my face to go back to the bush. That's a very good prayer, Charlie. I'll pray that with you too. A few more feet, the bearded man shouted to the man in the truck. Pete backed up, holding the door open with one hand, the other on the steering wheel, a cigarette held between his teeth. Ho! Pete threw the truck into park and turned off the ignition. He got out, grabbed a beer from the cooler and popped open the top. He drank, smoked and watched as the others began to throw rocks into the bed. Think we need all those? He asked the bearded man. Gotta fight fire with fire. Sweat dripped from his temple into his thick beard as he tossed another rock into the back of the truck. It's time to protest their protest. We'll get them to back off. Pete took another drag of his cigarette, then flipped it across the yard where it lay smouldering in the spotted grass. He finished off his beer, then lifted another rock and threw it into the back. He got an image of his wife, but shrugged it off. This was none of her business. This was his job. This was his pride at stake. You're right. If they just stay on the reservation and leave the rest of the world alone, we might get along all right. They just can't stand progress. Too big a concept, I guess. The bearded one kept loading, never pausing to look up. They've interfered with my job, now yours. Well, not no more. What about Douglas, the wannabe? Another one added. Oh, he'll learn what's good for him, the bearded man said. When we're done tonight, the world will go back to normal. Pete picked up another stone, threw it on the growing pile, and wiped sweat from his forehead. Night tried to cool the day as a man and his wife walked along the river, far away from the bridge, from the people. They walked side by side without speaking. Golden and black hair flowed freely behind them, mixing and swirling at times. His bare back cooled with the soft, open breeze. Her body under the white cotton dress relaxed into the night. Finally, they rested at the water's edge, took off their shoes on the grassy shoreline, and for a long time listened only to the song of the river. I brought her stone, Adrienne began. She reached in the medicine bag that hung around her neck and pulled out the red stone. Her bare toes stuck out from under her dress, so small and delicate, as she sat with her knees up to her chest. Adrienne looked out to the river, feeling the stone, familiar with its every contour. I know of your vision. Makunzi told me of your purpose, your honour to protect the children. Do you understand why I had to leave? Why I must be here? You are Ogichida, Chinodon. I have always known that. You are a brave warrior for the future. Adrienne nodded, still looking out at the river and the leaves shimmering in the distance. I know of your vision of the white men. I know you must be here, that you must protect. She handed Chinodon the stone, closing her hand over his. And you, will you stay? Chinodon asked. He recognized something different with Adrienne, a calmness, a peace, something he hadn't seen for a long time. Things have changed, Chinodon. Adrienne cupped one hand inside the other, looking down at her feet, thinking of the last few weeks, the pain, the loneliness, the searching, the healing. She slowly rubbed one thumb with the other, then looked up into the horizon. It's not over, but the weight is gone. Chinodon picked up her hand and began to massage her fingers, her wrist, her palm, the way he always had. Then he knew he must tell her before she answered. I need to tell you something, Adrienne. I waited. You were not ready to hear it then. She pulled her hand away gently, then turned and looked back at the man she loved. She did not see a colour different than her own. She saw him. His eyes were still sad. She wondered what they saw and wanted to help him, heal him. When Morning Star died, I could not tell you, he began. She put her finger to his lips, then gently touched his face. Shh. I could not add to your grief. Shh, she whispered, wanting only to touch him. Something happened. Makunzi. Shh. Her eyelids closed softly, like a butterfly's wing. You should know. She touched his cheek, then the single tear falling down. I will know, some day. Right now, she whispered, kissing his cheek, his eyelids. I need you, Chinodon. He had waited so long to hear these words, her words, the words he thought she would never say again. His arms held her then and brought her down, down on the forgiving grass. They each softened into the other's embrace remembering, discovering. His hand followed her golden hair down her back. He touched her soft curves, her arms, caressed her fingers. He could not touch her enough. It would never be enough, he thought. He held her with such tenderness, such knowing tenderness, that she felt her heart would spill from the need of him. Then, soaking in her presence, soaking in her love, he kissed her, gently, slowly, tenderly. His lips relished, waded, then swam in hers. Kisses became spirals, spinning them, wedding them, taking them to a place they could not escape, a place they could not leave, a place they had entered before. There was no hurry, there was no time, there was only their love. And there, in the bliss of their union, she cried. Tears that meant something else, came from somewhere else, opened someplace else. She sobbed with relief. She sobbed the joy of a new day. She cried for herself and for him. It was the pool of their love, the spilling of her heart. They lay with hearts beating strong, giving strength and love. He heard hers, she heard his, and in the silence they heard the river. Wabanungikwe and her daughter drove towards the trestle. She held a message for Adrian, for the rest who were there. As the woods turned into a dark blanket, as the clouds turned from white to red to brown to black, Wabanungikwe gripped the stone tighter, the realization firmly. She had prayed long about the stone, had asked her daughter to sing her beautiful songs during the afternoon of searching. It was during one of the song's rounds that she understood what to do, what the stone had meant, what its purpose would be. So they had quickly packed, her daughter not fully understanding, and began the journey down to the river, down to where the Ogichito warriors waited to protect the earth. Now it was her time to participate in this great movement of healing, to gift Adrian. I thought Adrian had found the stone that she needed. Nijigikwe said, pulling down on the visor as the sun began to set. Yes, she did. Wabanungikwe read the map as her daughter drove. Then why are we to bring another? It seems foolish to drive all this way, that another stone would be this important. Each Mishumas that is brought into the lodge, does not each one have a special purpose? Nijigikwe was silent, thinking about this. To the white world, these are just stones, rocks, something to crush or weight to bear. But to our people, these are our relatives. Each Mishumas has a story. Nijigikwe thought about her life in the city, how she too lived in the white world, how she now tried to maintain her tradition. Wabanungikwe continued. We know the secret to living in balance and harmony with the earth. We have known it for thousands of years. This is why we must bring this Mishumas, this relative, to those who circle the fire. Mother, I think we'd better stop. Wabanungikwe wondered why her daughter would not accept his teaching, but when she looked to where Nijigikwe looked, to the side of the road, she understood. A white woman sat in a stalled car on the road's shoulder. Steam escaped from the hood. Her head rested back on the headrest. Her eyes were closed, her lips mumbling. Pete, if you were here right now. The two Indian women pulled up alongside the car. Quick, you must come out, Wabanungikwe shouted out of the passenger side window. What? Eyelids opened, surprised at the intrusion of her thoughts. Her forehead furrowed, then hands grabbed onto the steering wheel. You don't understand, Wabanungikwe shouted, then turned to her daughter. Stop, let me out, pull up over there. Nijigikwe now saw what her mother had seen. Fire leapt from the grass to the hood, travelling quickly along the dry August grass, under the car to the back end. No, Nimama, you can't go out there. The daughter pulled back out into the lane, holding onto the steering wheel in tight defiance. It isn't safe. Wee wib means quick. Wee wib, stop! Wabanungikwe shouted and opened the door of the still moving car. The daughter instinctively stepped on the brakes, reaching with her right hand to hold on to her mother, but her mother was too strong, too determined. Go now, Wabanungikwe said as she got out and ran to the woman's car. Wabanungikwe ripped open the old car door and grabbed the white woman's arm. Get your hands off, the woman shrugged her shoulders. Listen to me, your car is on fire. A moment later they both ran to the woman who watched with frightened eyes, ran together away from the burning car. The two women ran toward Nijigikwe while the car they ran from went up in flames. They felt the devouring heat igniting the full tank of gas. The men sat around the fire listening to Miskwa Mikinakwe tell of the bush, of the escape so many years ago. They listened as the sky and the fire grew more colourful. Winters were very cold, living the way we did. Ow, Charlie! Floors were heated, with rocks buried beneath the surface. Will you be mean to your mother? There's a snaky out there with your name on it. I wouldn't dare, Mama. You wouldn't feed me to that snaky, would you? Of course not. Nothing like the life experience to keep it real, though, am I right? Goddess knows I've had enough of those in my lifetime. We're up to 15 now. It's getting ridiculous, people of Earth. Winters were very cold, living the way... Oh, I've read that, sorry. The heat would creep from the fire to the rocks to the ground. Some men listened in awe. Others knew this to be true and nodded. Grandmother told us cold was good medicine, huh? Cold is good for you. I think not. Well, you've got to have a certain kind of constitution if you can handle that. The elder held her palms towards the flames, feeling the heat. We learned a lot about the earth medicines during those years. Nokomis had remembered. It is important to know what is important, huh? I used to find it hard to know what was important, White Buck said. A hint of a grin played on his face. but I find that I have a very good teacher. Her name is Pain." He smiled big and tapped his lame leg. The men laughed, knowing it was both funny and true. "My husband taught me a lot," Miskwa Mikinakwe added. More laughter. "Where was he from, anyway?" Makunzi asked. "Not from your res," Miskwa Mikinakwe smiled big too. "Or I wouldn't have learned anything at all, huh?" The men laughed, enjoying this round. And so for the next hour it was like this, climbing stories with good-natured laughter and life. It was fun for Miskwa Mikinakwe to be with these young men. It was good medicine, good life. Then the circle grew serious as talk turned to why they were there. Makunzi looked only at the fire, then laid a piece of wood on the red coals. "I sit here at this fire for many reasons," he began. Indushin dakos Makunz. I am Little Bear. I am to protect and heal. Today I'm trying to understand the purpose to my name. This river, now part of me. Everyone grew silent. Water rushed over rocks, sounding like the healing medicine from jingle dress powwow dancers. A pop, a spark, then silence. This river has been in my dreams, lives in my mind, occupies my prayers. It is difficult to be here. Makunzi could not at first look at the others, yet the others waited. For the next hour, the man with 2 braids told his story. He told his life. The men and the elder listened with their hearts. They comforted him with their presence. "I'm learning to listen, learning to learn," Makunzi finally said, finishing his story and walking over to the wood pile. "And how do you know what to listen to?" Douglas asked, breaking the silence of the red men around the fire. "How does a bear know what to listen to?" Miskwa Mikinakwe answered, and began to hum again as Makunzi added more wood on the fire. Down the tracks in a nearby city, 3 men watched as security moved toward the engine with mechanical problems. The threesome walked in the opposite direction, inside shadows, quiet, until they reached the truck and hydraulics. "Maybe we can't get the railroad to move them off the tracks, but this baby should do the trick." The bearded man patted the truck. I say we think this over." Come on, Pete. We need you in order to do this." Pete lit up his cigarette, thinking, "Suppose it won't hurt nothing, just scare 'em. Load up the beer, there's going to be a hot time in the old town tonight." There was a certain feeling that night at the tracks, circling the sacred fire. No one said anything. No one tried to put a word to it, yet it remained there, hanging like a fine mist. As though in the middle of a cloud, they moved and talked and put more wood on the fire. Adrian leaned up against Chinudin, hands entwined, quiet. Makunz sat on a large mushumus across from them, getting up from time to time to tend the fire, to add medicine. And on a simple wooden chair, Miskwa Mikinakwe sat off to the side, singing softly, then humming. White Buck and Douglas stood on the outside of the circle and talked quietly. Others sat and watched and waited. White Buck looked over with his walking stick to Adrian. You will do this then? His voice soft as the medicine bag that rested between her and Chinudin. The article is nearly complete. Tomorrow I will take photos. So you know of the spill that was never cleaned? What? She asked, and looked first at Chinudin, then over at Douglas. Douglas, Whitebuck said, and motioned him over with his walking stick. Chinudin listened, yet said nothing. Adrienne, it was a day that I was stationed at the yard about a month ago. His sandy brown hair caught the light of the fire. Gallons of fuel oil had spilled when a train derailed there in town. It made the news. Do you remember? I tried to get a hold of you. Adrienne nodded, remembering how she couldn't return his call, how he had avoided how she had avoided Douglas after the accident. Now, seeing him again reignited her pledge to publish all that she knew. I checked into it. I was told that it had been cleaned up, that no one had been hurt. Well, it was never really cleaned up. The EPA knew about it and insisted it be cleaned, but the Governor's office stopped them from any further action. Thousands of gallons of oil still saturate the ground around the derailment, only a mile or so from the Great Lake. The public doesn't know this, of course, just like all the other tragedies waiting to happen, just like this. The man pointed to the trestle. The public was told it was all taken care of. Adrienne sat up, now angry. Why was the clean-up stopped? It seems to me that even the Governor would want to protect our environment. The others around the fire knew of this, had had time to think on Douglas's words. Not if the rails would have to be removed to clean up the spill, Whitebuck answered, standing behind Adrienne. Douglas sat down upon the earth and shook his head. Not if that means the train is stopped for a while. No business, no money. It's all about money. Adrienne leaned back on Chinudin and thought about the story she would now finish, of the pictures she'd take. She knew the newspaper she worked for was eager for the final draft. They had encouraged her investigation. Ever since the terrible derailment in Waiawega, there was a growing concern. That was why they had gone to this river, why Morningstar had died. Chinudin pulled out the red rock from his medicine bag, then finally spoke to the people that circled the fire. Have you heard? Our daughter died here at this trestle. Adrienne bowed her head slightly, covered her eyes for a moment, then moved over and sat up straight with courage. Chinudin held up the rock, glowing with the light of the fire. Morningstar had picked up the stone only minutes before she died and gave it to me. His eyes narrowed but did not blink. Yet I blinked. Oh, the irony. He reached in his medicine bag and put tobacco down, knowing he would be sharing something of his vision. Then, preparing the sage, he continued, This stone was in my vision. It was with this fire, with you who sit here. You too were in my vision. He lit some sage and, as though sliding the feather across a stringed instrument, Chinudin cleansed the white medicine feather over the lifting sage smoke. Adrienne, sorry, I just had someone say you need to get back on your path, Tanya. Yes, I do. Adrienne carried the shell around the circle as her husband cleansed each person with the feather and sage. glasses and hats were prayerfully removed. We'll protect you, they say. Thank you, Spirit. I think I'm in great need of protection at this current point in time. Hands wafted the healing smoke over bowed heads. The fire swirled with colour, pulsed with heat. Darkness shadowed the group, lit by the fire. An ember shot out to the edge, briefly reddening the grass it fell on. Chinurdin returned to his place and circled the stone 4 times in the lifting sage. This Mishumis, this grandfather, is important to what we are to do tonight, he continued. Then, looking at each one's eyes, Chinurdin went on. Mishumis has seen the vanishing of many tribal fires, the woodland buffalo long gone, for as Mishumis has witnessed the pain, the great ice sheets, the flood, ancestral wars, his voice then fell like a faraway call of the winged. Long black hair lay loose about his shoulders, glimmering in the fire's light, reminding those who listened that this warrior was yet in mourning. Even European arrival, Mishumis has also witnessed the new earth, the reconciliations, the movement toward healing. Where can I go, Great Spirit? Where can I go where I'm safe and truly and greatly and honouringly loved by a good, kind, noble, loving man? Where on planet Earth can I go? What would my friend Michelle say? Hold on and let go, Tanya. I'm letting go, Michelle. I'm letting go. There's no point holding on anymore. It's just all turned evil and I don't know why. He turned to the stone within the sage's reaching, spiralling smoke. Do you see these layers, these red layers? Then, holding it high, his voice grew strong. These are the layers of truth, the layers of life, of our life. It is time for us to stand up for the truth. As Ogechi Da, we reveal what these layers tell us. When we hold the stone in our hand, we hold the past. When we give it our heart, we hold the present. And when we honour this Mishumis, this grandfather, we hold the future in the palm of our hands. Chinurdin held the stone up to Grandmother Moon. This Mishumis found Morning Star the day she crossed over. This is a stone for the children. What will they see when their eyes grow weak? Will this be here? He pointed to the woods, the river, the sky. There are 4 directions on the stone that come together at a point. There is a medicine wheel of truth here, pointing to the centre of the sacred hoop. How Mama T loves the truth. It's cost her dear. It's cost her everything. Everything, everything, everything. But it's a hill I'm prepared to die on. It is what it is, babies. This Mishumis holds the answers, our directions. The sacred hoop has never changed. Let Mishumas, these layers of history, of our people's tradition, of Earth Mother, speak to your heart. These ways have gotten us this far and will guide our path through the future. Chinurdin unwrapped the bundle as Miskwa Mikinakwe took the tobacco can at her feet and began to shake it. A soft, hushed sound circled the fire, tobacco becoming the heartbeat of all present. Then, joining the music of the shaker's rhythm, the elder's voice was remembered once more. It began soft, then grew, then softened once more. The directions were honoured, the pipe was smoked, the stone passed around, and all were connected. Like you and me, Charlie. You a little bit connected to the mama, sitting in the crook of her arm. Oh, biting the mama. Poor mama. Everyone wants to bite the mama. Fuck that shit. The day was softened by the moon and stars and the fire. It was nearly morning. A few of the men under blankets still slept alongside the fire. Others remained awake, waiting for them to come. Miskwa Mikinakwe slept in the jeep parked on the road that paralleled the fire and the tracks. Adrienne was wrapped in Chinurdin's arms, her head on his lap, waking from time to time, needing to see him, then relaxing when his hand touched her hair. McCunts, Douglas and White Buck were also awake, talking quietly in the soft glow of the fire. How long? McCunts asked White Buck. The sound came up from under the earth, carrying with it a feeling of dread, a moment of arrival. They were coming, White Buck said as he listened carefully to the earth movement. He put his ear against the track once more, listening to the vibration. They are close now. Soon we should be able to see the light. He stood up and looked west. They had better wake the others. Sorry. Oh, we just pulled out a feather. What is this? What is this, Charlie? What is that? It's yours, is it? It's yours, but you don't want it. You just don't want me to have it. Don't want your mama to have your feather. Oh, you're a weird little bird. We had better wake the others, Chinurdin said, gently nudging Adrienne awake. Oh, fella. By the time all of the men were awake, kissy, 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 baby girl. You're getting smoochy because it's nearly birdie num num bedtime, isn't it? Yes, the sun's getting low in the sky. Sorry, by the time all the men were awake, the pinpointed light was visible, flickering behind trees beyond the trestle, yet the vibrations came from the tracks. They were coming. Do you think we should move off the tracks, one asked, and leave Iskadei? Chinurdin stood up. We are Ogichida. We are here to take a stand, not to run from fear. Let them come. I will not move. What do you think? Macunzi turned to Douglas, who had not turned away from the approaching light. Who could have gotten past security to move the train this way? It's impossible, he thought. Listen again. What do you hear? Douglas asked. White Buck put his ear on the track once more, held onto his stick, stood up and nodded. The iron horse comes. There is something else, Douglas began. The light. Look. Everyone stood now, facing the light, watching as it steadily transformed from one dot to two circles of lights. It's not a train that's coming, but it might as well be. Douglas looked at Chinoodan, then to each man. It's a high rail truck, and it's coming fast. It is okay to not know why. Niyogishikuikwe. I guess that's true. Sometimes not knowing, never having closure, never knowing what people's agendas were. It's probably better for your mental health to not know. Otherwise you could be cracked open like a Fabergé fucking egg, am I right? Anyway. Life goes on, people of Earth. Chapter 6. The Story. It's early before dawn, I hear Grandpa say. It's time. Grandfather, hear my prayer as I walk to purification. Wa-woo buffalo cry, Mijuzi cry. This time it's a thunderbird again, so they alternate between thunderbird and eagle. The moments before sunrise would have been quiet. A car pulled up in the opposite direction. Car lights off, engine off. 3 women got out knowing immediately something was happening, talking to each other in low voices. Adrian grabbed Chinoodan's hand, hearing, "Are you putting out more feathers, you little varmint?" Hearing the truck coming towards them. From a distance they heard metal guide rails screaming a warning. I think she is. She's pulling out more feathers. Chinoodan, we must leave the tracks, she said, pulling on him, desperate. I can't leave. Please, I can't lose you too. I can't leave. This is my vision. I am to be here. You know this. He placed the red stone in her hand. Makunzi, take Adrian. Promise to take care of her, Chinoodan said, as the lights became brighter, the truck louder, closer. I must stand with you, brother. I need you to take her to the jeep, Makunz. Do this for me. Makunz took Adrian's hand, then hurried her to the jeep along the road. She looked back at Chinoodan, crying. Look at this naughty boy. Look at it. Another one. Screaming for him to come with her. But Makunz opened the jeep's door and forced Adrian in, behind the elder who sat upright, listening. Yes, my darling. He was my darling. The men gathered together, circling the fire, staying with their protest, to protect the earth, to protect the children. 3 women walked toward the fire, not knowing what was coming. The noise grew louder, the lights brighter. Still, the Ogichida remained with the sacred fire. 20 yards away, rocks hurled out from the truck's bed, lights shining hate. 15 yards, more rocks. Tyres spit gravel out from under. Men's arms covered their faces. Insults yelled. 10 yards, more rocks. White Buck, then Douglas fell. McCunts ducked, then joined Chinoodan, who faced it, seeing his vision once again. The white buffalo stomped the ground behind the men throwing the rocks. The white men could not see what the warriors could. Unable to hear the stories of the red rock they had held in their hands, the men in plaid shirts threw more stones and insults. "Can't they see?" he asked his father. "When will they stop?" His father turned to look, seeing the sun rising. "When they see the truth in our eyes." When they turned to look, only then. 5 yards away, pink edges opened the sky. Too fast, too fast, the sacred fire lit the sky, colours exploding the morning. Too fast, too fast. The guide rails skipped, hitting the trestle swayed, moaning. Too fast, too fast. Coming towards the fire, the men, the women. Tyres wobbled, trestle beams moaned from the speeding weight, movement, swaying. Too fast. The truck hopped off the tracks, the trestle giving in to the weight, the speed. "Oh my God," Adrian yelled. "What is it?" the elder asked. "What do you see?" Adrian sat in the jeep unable to move, watching as though she had slipped through a crack in the morning. Out of time, she saw it happen. "Oh, dear God," Adrian answered. She saw it, one moment moving the next. Lights bounced off to the right, off the tracks, away from the men and women, away from the fire, towards the parked cars, towards them, brighter and brighter, white lights boring into her. She heard the truck braking, then heard screaming, metal ripping, tearing, more light, blinding, entering her. Then nothing. "Every stone has a story," Wabanungikwe said as she held her hand. "This stone is for her." Wabanungikwe put the right grey rock with the white clouds in Adrian's limp hand, wrapping it with her own. He stood beside her, wishing her back to life. She lay lifeless, eyes closed, somewhere else. Outside the hospital room, reporters and police gathered, asking questions, finding details. 2 men and 1 woman died, 2 more in critical condition, 2 arrested. 1 remained by the fire. The drumbeat came from up on the hill. There was a circle of people, drumming, singing. She recognised the song. It was her song. She joined as though it was the natural thing to do. It was soothing, merging with the ring of fire. She knew all that circled there, understood where she was. There was a vibration that had brought her, had carried her into this ring, and the strong beat continued. Spirits circled to her, remembering her, touching her with words, entering her with feelings. "Go back, you are not done. There is a story. Tell the story. Wear the blanket. Heal the people." She looked towards the moon and the stars. There was one star burning bright, coming toward her, soothing her, exciting her, and she laughed. "It is you!" And in an instant they joined, mother and daughter, together again, twirling with love for each other. Telling secrets, loving, holding, joining. I have missed you, little one. Again the words to the beat of the drum, to her song. Go back now, you are not done. There is a story. Tell the story. Wear the blanket. Heal the people. She could not leave her daughter. Not now. She had missed her so much. The daughter wrapped the mother with her presence, a star warming the cold inside, comforting the hurt and aches inside. Then the star opened from within, and the mother could see the rest. There was more. There was more for her to do, a story to complete. The drum continued to beat, the song continued to be sung, and the child's story was told. Charlie, you better stop that. Charlie, no plucking the feathers. Charlie, 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 pay attention. Adrienne instantly heard, witnessed galaxies spiralling from the drum, and the song continued. She remembered Mother Earth beating her first pulse the day she was new, and life vibrated within her, and the song continued. Wrapped with her daughter, Adrienne became the two and the four-legged, the finned and the winged. Winged, Charlie, no plucking. The creepers, we've got one out there, haven't we, Charlie? And the crawlers, more like a slitherer. Oh, it's beautiful when you see it move. It's really graceful and astonishing, but moves quite quick, so now it's getting a little bit more alert, that carpet python. I have to not get as close as I've been getting when it was all sluggish and lethargic. And the song continued. She felt the two-legged becoming the rooted, and she understood the circle. Like an elder opening the blanket, Morning Star opened her view to her mother, and Adrienne saw coming clouds. There was buffalo rolling over and over from one colour to the next. Red, yellow, white, black, rolling towards her, entering her, listening, and then the drum paused. We all come from the same silence, between the same beats. That is our birthplace. Does not matter the colour of your eyes, your hair, your skin. In Dina Wemagan, what matters is your heart. Listen to the drum. Listen to your drum. Listen to the silence, and remember, this is the story of healing and medicine. The medicine is this truth. The healing is this blanket. Then the daughter circled her mother with prayers. No plucking feathers. Cheeky birdie. Prayers for the children and the little plucking birdie num baby birds. Go back now. You are not done. There is a story. Tell the story. Wear the blanket. Heal the people. And back through the swirl of time, she left the ring of fire, coming back to tell the story. Twilight and earth quiet, Adrienne sat alone, her arms wrapped around her pulled up legs, keeping warm, watching the moon on the lake. She had not slept last night. They had driven back to Wabanungikwe's home. There would be a 4-day ceremony. It was the moon of the falling leaves, a time to say goodbye to summer. Adrian sat down at the big lake, listening, waiting, remembering. It is time to return Morning Star's stone back to the river, Chinudin. Husband and wife walked along the river one last time. He held her arm, helping her injured legs to the shoreline. Mishumas must join the power of the water spirits. Chinudin had closed his eyes and held his daughter's stone. Together, the Yogichi-da and the spirit world will protect this earth mother for the children, Adrian. Together, you and I will show the truth. Your story will be told. The sun will rise again. The white world will someday turn to look, Adrian. Then they will see the earth will be new again. Adrian touched his face tenderly, gently. She opened his palm as they looked at the red stone for the last time. The father and the mother stood and faced the river that had claimed their daughter. Each touched the stone, raised their joined hands to the sun, and prayed. Chinudin lowered the stone to Adrian's lips, and she kissed her daughter goodbye. Chinudin closed. I'm getting emotional here. I'll explain to you why. I'm not completely nuts, people of all. My daughter Crystal was crossing a creek and she saw this glistening. You can't see it unless it's wet, but it's got little tiny quartz deposits in it. And this was about, I can't remember how many years ago now. It was before I had the horrific gallbladder surgery, which was 5 years ago. So it must have been about, yeah, you can see it glistening in the sunlight. I could just then. Anyway, she saw it glistening in the sunlight in the water. She bent down and picked it up, and it's a heart-shaped rock. And then she gifted it to me because she said, Mummy, you've wanted to have a true loving partner all your life, and this is my gift to you, that one day you'll find that person. And I cherish it, but reading that story, I'm wondering if maybe we should return it to the river, since love always betrays me or turns evil or floats away, or I sabotage it by my truth speaking and my shamanic ways. So there is that too. And I wonder if it's time I should release it back to the water spirits too, and maybe someone else will stumble across it and think it'll bring luck and happiness and peace and joy and delight and true love to some silly mother's heart. It's even more painful that my daughter and I are estranged now for well over a year and a month. So it is what it is, people of all. I have considered sanding it so that sanding it back to polish it, which would look lovely, but I'm not sure how much of the sediment might fall away, and then it will no longer have the heart shape. But then it will have the shape that it was always meant to have, I guess. So it is what it is, but I guess it's tempting to return it to the river. I don't know which river she found it in though, but yes. There's another one I found at Byron Bay, and so I've got all these little heart-shaped rocks. This one I put a little spell on it. Romance, fidelity, admiration, fun, chosen. Yeah, well, you know, you've got to work your magic, you've got to do whatever you can do, am I right? But God's, here's another one. I think Jasmine gave this one to me. It's a dyed stone, so it's lost its colour. And Jared gave this to me for my birthday recently. It's very pretty, heart-shaped rock. So everyone knows in my family that love is my most prized, most cherished, most desired value and emotion, second only to my desire for freedom. If things don't look too kosher, if things start to get weird, or I'm not being treated how I perceive I should be treated, then freedom has to take priority over love even. I literally have to start chewing my arm off and taking another fork in the road. So it is what it is, but it's okay. It was never going to be a tenable situation anyway. But I had a very interesting debrief with my psychiatrist on Wednesday, and I won't share it with you because it was a little bit confronting actually. But even he believes that the love was real, past tense, and that it was kind of a relationship in a sense, predicated on my dancing like a maniac and us reaching peak emotional experience with my moshing and the music. He said it was reaching catharsis. It was like, but I'd already worked that out anyway, months ago, years ago even. It's a substitute for the orgasm that a couple would reach when they're lovemaking, and so it's expressed via the passion and the intensity of the dance, and it was a kind of a beautiful intimacy because it was a safe intimacy. You know, that person goes home safely to his wife and I go home safely alone, but we had this connectivity that would happen from time to time in the dance. But anyway, that was then, and this is now, and in the eternal now. Now where was I? Crying over a fucking rock in a story and then showing you my daughter's rock that she gifted me. Just got to find where that was. Chinoodan lowered the stone to Adrian's lips and she kissed her daughter goodbye. Chinurden closed both hands over the stone that had called his daughter and held it close to his heart. His eyes closed briefly and released the stone back into the moving river. It had been 2 months, 2 months since the tracks, since the beginning of her new life. Chinurden had prayed for her each day, while Bunungiqua had told her the story of the stone over and over until she awoke. Then one day she was back to tell the story of healing and medicine. Adrienne looked beyond the lake, and as a life sigh, it happened. Bright pink slipped up over the edge, awakening the world of colour. The woman, with hair catching the colour of the rising sun, sat mesmerised, sharing the secret, promising always to keep it. For as she watched the sun move, she was sure it was a dance, sure there was a song. Splendidly, sun opened up into sky, silky and brilliant, kissing her, knowing her, until finally the dance slowed and the song silenced. There is a teaching, don't pull the feathers, Charlie, that as Anishinaabe people, we are to hang our problems on the morning star. Adrienne looked up and smiled. Wabanungiqua had joined her, standing above the water's edge. Adrienne looked at the proud Indian woman with tremendous love and gratitude. She was part of her life, part of her story. See that star? Adrienne followed where Wabanungiqua looked. That one is for you and me. Misqua Mikinakwe is there with Morning Star. The star was still bright, alone in the sky. Adrienne smiled. Eyes glistened with love, remembering. 2 breaths exchanged visibly at dawn. Adrienne heard Wabanungiqua walk back to her house, heard the door close, as birds flew with morning songs. The air smelled clean, felt cool, as Adrienne watched the star slowly fade. She touched her leg, the scar, and thought of her recovery and the burial, the article making the AP, then the story, the journey she was now on. Minutes later, eyes still struggled to keep the star. Wabanungiqua returned carrying the blanket that Misqua Mikinakwe had worn. The colours of autumn fell as a curtain behind the woman who sat in startling beauty. Golds, reds and yellows matched the highlights of her hair, and it pleased Wabanungiqua's heart. She stood next to her friend and said, Misqua Mikinakwe gave this blanket for me to heal. She wore it the day I came. Adrienne remembered the elder standing by her door, her dignity, her grace. Silent tears fell for the teacher who had passed on. She said it would be like medicine for me, but you have been my medicine, the woman said as she sat down next to Adrienne, both watching the moon and star disappear with the sun's presence. Adrienne looked at her, thinking of the truth that had entered her. Your presence taught me about myself. Misqua Mikinakwe told me that if you know yourself, you can know the world. Indeed. That is an old teaching. I still have anger. I know that. Wabanungiqua covered Adrienne's hand with her own. But you have been like a trickle of water on a rock. I think there is now a crack. The woman smiled, patted Adrian's hand, then, sighing, smoothed the folds of the blanket on her lap. No longer does the sun rise and set only on Indian people. Both women smiled, silent for a time, each thinking of the elder who had taught them both, whose presence was still as clear as the water itself. How can I thank you for your teachings? Adrian asked. Your healings? By receiving them, that is all. It is said that it is a great honour to receive the blanket. Wabanungikwe unfolded the blanket on her lap, smoothing out the fringes, tracing the sunburst design with her fingers. Years ago, when our ancestors were starving and freezing, the blanket was the greatest gift to give an elder. She raised the blue and yellow blanket up to the rising sun, then said, "This has helped me in my healing. Now the circle of giving continues." We, Wabanungikwe, looked into the sky to where the star had shone. We give you this healing blanket. The ceremony which you have travelled so far is also for your naming. You have a name, Adrian, an Indian name. And like a mother comforting her child, Wabanungikwe wrapped the blanket around the white woman with the red heart. Arms around blanket, around arms, they sat watching the sun lift higher and higher, for the woman who had disclaimed her now claimed her. The woman who did not know now knew. The Creator knows us by our spiritual names. Neogishik Gu Ikwe. Excuse me. Afterward, the name. A person's name is very important and sacred and kind of sets their destiny in some ways. I should change my name because I haven't had a very nice destiny, but I've accepted it over the decades and it is what it is now, people of Earth. But I have several names. Ruth Tanya but Abraham Sarah. Ruth Tanya, daughter of Abraham and Sarah, from when I used to be a Reformed Jew and practicing, fairly observant Reformed Jew, and at one time training to be an Orthodox Jew as well, even studied Kabbalah with those filthy miscreants. And I won't even mention their names. No, I'm not over it yet, obviously. Then my other name was gifted to me by Great Spirit when I was choosing a name for my Paltalk nickname. I sat here at this very desk and I said, I don't know what to call myself. They said, psychedelic dreamer. You're always dreaming in colour, dreamer. Your dreaming gives you healing and wisdom and sometimes, on rare occasions, precognition of the future. Sometimes images dredged up, trauma dreams which are never pleasant. But there's been great teaching in my dreams and I always write them down or speak of them to someone, preserve the memory. And of course my name is Tanya, but in the last 10 years or so I started calling myself Mama T in the voodoo kind of style. So there is that too. But anyway, I'm sure I have a spirit name that I've yet to learn or be taught, but it's all good. I'll find that out when I cross into the next dimension one day. Eventually, when they eventually let me in, people of Earth. Vomited back to Earth 15 times now. It's getting a bit ridiculous. The name. I wish that I was a spirit and I could open the hearts and the eyes of people. Mijizikwe. The old man picked up another bead, let it slip onto the needle, and remembered her words, their words, the words that circled the earth since that summer night 50 years ago. He tenderly poked the fabric with the long, slender needle and continued his promise. So much has changed. So much has changed. His gnarled fingers gently touched the star that had accompanied her on her journey to remind others what had been forgotten, what was always there. The old man thought once again of the story Chinudin and Adrian shared, of the tracks, of the prejudice and hate, of the pain and separation, of earth healing. We shared this with those who would hear, he thought now. The elder continued sewing, and his heart listened once again to Adrian's story of the stars, of the circle of fire. Together, his brother and his sister taught others of the silence, of the beginning of time, of the end of time. Together, for 35 years, they carried the story with the grey stone of white clouds to places far and near. They showed the people. The elder smiled. People listened. People healed. Earth Mother healed. Then Chinudin had died and Mukuntz had remembered his promise. Adren would not carry the message alone. The story needed to be told. The healing needed to continue. Mishumas is the beginning of a new earth, he thought. Chinudin's vision echoed in the old man's mind, a steady beat to Adren's song. The swaying sweet grass, the humming, the healing, the quiet teachings of my elder, Adren had said, was only the beginning. She had picked up his hand, even when her strength was nearly gone. Now it is up to you to continue the circle of healing. She wore this blanket with such dignity, he thought now, holding it up to the setting sun, and knew she had worn the prayers of all ages. Like the blanket dance, it was all a circle. He touched the frayed edge of the fabric and remembered. At every city, every gathering, a piece of the blanket was cut, made into another blanket, reminding others of the healing that was needed, continuing the giving, continuing the circle of life. Red Turtle Woman's teachings had crossed Turtle Island and now touched the shores of many other people, many other drums. And now, as he finished sewing on the beads of her name, the elder remembered telling Adren the truth 50 years ago, the hour before her healing sweat lodge in the circle of sage, how it had happened so many years ago. Watch morning star for me, her brother, Chinudin had said. Mukuntz got up and added a log with a mishumisag. No, I walked along the river with Morning Star, finding rocks. I remember I was so excited. There was a little bear, my name, but she was coming out of the woods. He had stopped then, unable to talk, unable to look at Adrienne. He looked away and into the fire. I was to protect her. Adrienne had pulled the towel over her legs, waiting at the fire. She reached for his hand. You are not to blame. But his voice had rushed on, wanting to get it out. I saw her, the mother, coming towards Morning Star. Makunt stopped once again. Mukwa warned. She snorted. I tried to distract the bear. I tried to protect Morning Star, Adrienne. I saw Makunt's run away into the woods. I thought the mother would follow, but instead she moved towards Morning Star. I yelled and yelled. I went to grab a stick, but Morning Star fell in. I couldn't save her, Adrienne. Chinorden couldn't save her. I couldn't save her. Then, turning from the fire, the man with tears trailing down his face cried into the lap of the mother. And a woman and a man cried for the pain of life, together, understanding, healing. The old man finished applying the last of the red beads. 3 more beads would finish her name on the blanket she would wear for her next journey. The elder knew some people still labelled others by the colour of their skin, the degree of their darkness or lightness, but he knew it was changing. Makuntz knew the blanket had reminded. Now it was time to bury her with the blanket that had healed, with Adrienne's last words. Let the blanket remind you. Then, placing the grey stone with white clouds on the blanket, he turned Wabanungikwe's stone over to look at the message one more time. There it was, etched into the grey stone. 2 white forms clearly emerged, a white bear looking into a white buffalo, healing and medicine. That is the story. That is the answer. Wrapped in the blanket, she would carry it with her to the shooting stars to join her daughter and her husband, her ancestors, her relatives. The needle poked one last time, the red bead finishing her name. She wears our prayers, was complete. You, as a woman, have the strength to change the world. Yes, you do, Sisters of Estros. Ni ogishek gu ikwe. Epilogue, the answer. Ancestors of Spirit Rock, descendants from full bloods, eagles listen. That is all we have left. Mijizikwe. Sadly, the United States is and always has been addicted to denial of our racist past and the need for earth healing and stewardship. Same can be said about Australia too. The vast, to a lesser degree New Zealand, I guess, all colonised countries have this problem. The vast majority of Americans simply want to get on with life, believe that all is in the past, imagine that it is over, pretend human power is greater than nature's power, argue that they didn't do it, justify that they are therefore not responsible. Amends are needed. There has and continues to be an inherited loss for many people. Healing is necessary. Our Mother Earth needs Ogichi-da, brave warriors, to heal and protect her. The children need a new earth. The children need a new world, more now in 2024 than ever, for obvious reasons. That thing that came in 2020, that filthy, anti-humanist, treacherous thing. The healing needed today is both complicated and simple. Going to the moon was complicated. Raising a family is complicated. Creating a symphony can be a complicated process, but the power behind each endeavour, each goal, is simple. Behind each success is love and creative power. Each person is born with the creative ability to offer healing to our world wherever we live, whomever we encounter. Speak up, acknowledge, correct the wrongs, protect the earth, honour the children. In particular, honour your children. They are the future of our species. This is Abinuji Aki. This is the children's land. We have a responsibility to look at the reality of what we have inherited. Where does history begin and the consequence of being born end? What is inheritance? What are you entitled to? Where do you draw the line? Is there a line? Where does your responsibility begin and your consciousness end? It is time to come together as one people, to offer strength to one another, to share in the bounty of the Creator, to put the blanket down, to wear and share the blanket and heal. Both the inherited victims and the inherited perpetrators need to heal. Our Mother Earth needs to heal. This story of the healing blanket wrote itself. In wordless visions, I saw the story. In a matter of moments, the tale was told. I saw the blanket being worn, felt the power go to the four directions, and heard the beating of the drum on a hill not far away, resonating deeply in my heart. I believe I was gifted this blanket. In receiving this healing blanket, I pass it on to you. May the blanket remind you we can't have life without Mother Earth. Niyogishik Guikwe. Let the blanket remind you. Let the blanket remind you of the tears. Let it remind you of the struggles, of the needs, of the rights. Let it remind you of your ability to heal. Let the blanket remind you of the tears. Let it remind you of your power, of your dignity, of your love. Let it remind you of your honour. Let the blanket remind you of the tears. Let it remind you that we are all related, to shelter and to comfort, to acknowledge, to do. Let the blanket remind you of the tears. Let it remind you of your beginning. Let it remind you of your end. Let it remind you of our beginning. Let it remind you of our end. Let the blanket remind you of the tears. Wear the blanket, offer the blanket, put the blanket down and heal. About the author, English name, Gina Jones, spiritual name, Oshki Mimingwa, translation, New Butterfly. Gina Jones is of Mohawk ancestry and was recently given the name Oshki Mimingwa, as a new butterfly. As a wife and mother, Gina makes her home in Green Bay, Wisconsin. She holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in education and is currently a middle school language arts teacher. Gina has co-authored 3 books with her husband, Robert Black Wolf Jones. Listen to the Drum, The Healing Drum, and Earth Dance Drum were written to promote personal healing and celebration and are presently distributed in 10 countries. Gina and Black Wolf are currently working on their next book dealing with relationships. Gina's work has been published in the anthology Unsilenced, The Spirit of Women, plural, She has also written children's and young adult fiction and is looking forward to entering the field of children's literature. Gina is involved in the Anishinaabe culture and co-facilitates the annual Celebration of Women conference held at Abinuji Aki with the co-authors of this book. Her dream is to promote world healing and earth stewardship. And then there's a whole part 2 of this book, but it's well, maybe I will read it because it's giving instruction on what various things are used for and why they use them. So I think we should continue with reading this, but not today. There's also lots of lovely poems, and I may not bother reading all the poetry. I may just pick one here and there, but how many pages is that next one? Dedications, free verse poetry. That's part 3. Values. So if it's not many, I'll continue reading now, but dear goddess. Okay, it's probably another video, so alright, I'm going to stop now. I've only had a very short few hours of sleep and I'm undergoing some kind of metamorphosis of changing and adapting and becoming the woman I was always meant to be, and it's a bit astonishing, quite frankly. Not sure I'm all that thrilled about it. I've had to let go of a lot of things and people that I deeply love, and it's painful for me, but that's what happens when you metamorphose babies. You get put in the mincer and you come out different, and I pray that I stay the loving, sweet person I've always been and stay in my light body, and that one day the person who truly loves me will manifest. Not younger men like that Indian man last night that positioned himself to was just about lying underneath me. It was really fucking inappropriate. And I handled it, but I should have just swatted on one. But you can't always be swatting people in the club. It's not good for my reputation. What reputation, am I right? But it was much more funnier the way I handled it by saying, you know, what are you doing? I said, you get any closer, you might as well enter into my body and wear my skin. He kind of laughed, but he did move. If he hadn't have moved, I would have swatted him one. But yeah, it was creepy as fuck. And then he hung around me quite a bit. He was obviously keen, you know, thought I'm attractive. I don't know what's wrong with these young men hunting down older women, powerful women like me who've seen too much and been tortured long enough and now kind of not interested in your bullshit, boys. You need to behave like a gentleman with deep honour and respect. And even then, think about the age gap. What is wrong with you? Why would you even entertain such a thought as to want to seduce a woman 20 or 30 years older? It's fucking depraved. But I shall have to get accustomed to it. It's happening a lot in the last 6 months or so, and I have to factor into the equation Mother Hydra babies eating into their brains, and it's eaten to some part of the brain that makes them think that old women are attractive. It doesn't make sense to me at all, but we're not dealing with ordinary human mortal interactions anymore. It's become something very dark and very fucking sinister. It's another reason I'm choosing that it's time to walk away, I think. I need to find others like me who aren't vaccinated and maybe have only caught the COVID a few times and we haven't been completely bioengineered and altered, because I can't have relationships with people that are toxic and fucking demonic. I've had them all my life, long before this bioengineering thing happened. I've had them, and I choose not to live in that consciousness. It's not for me. I want joy and peace and delight and real passion and devotion and romance and care and tenderness and affection and deep honour in a life partner, not just men children playing disturbing games. Nah, fools. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to finish my video. Every time I open my mouth, I make about 1,000 enemies. And I'm okay with it. This is my reality that I'm dealing with, and my manifestation of what I want for a life partner and or a husband, although I'm not keen on the idea of marrying ever again. But if I were to marry, by the God, it'd have to be a really special, magical, wonderful man. It's I can't even imagine ever finding someone that can meet me where I am as an equal and with great honour and the same amount of power and magic as I have. So it may be impossible, especially given that the spirits have metamorphosed me recently and upgraded me, so I'm always just that little bit out of reach for those that want to join with me as equals. The more out of reach I get, the more they want to dominate and control, and it's a sickness and a perversion that I cannot countenance. Especially pushing the buttons with the pedophilia thing. It's not okay. You don't get to trigger me like that. Push that fucking button. So, Mama T's done now. I'm very sad about it. Very, very sad, but I have to honour my own integrity. I fought too hard and too long to survive my own familial pedophiles, and then to fight in the last 14 years on the coalface of social media, to fight against that, to then invite someone into my life that thinks it's funny. It's sick and it's evil and it's depraved, and I won't be supporting that. Anyway, bye for now, people of Earth. Take good care. Aho.